Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayave. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama sloke bhaktir bhavati naishti. So Hare Krishna, welcome everyone. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 16, verse number 16. So give me 1 second. I really struggle with Sanskrit. So this verse is in the meter of Brahma Samhita, like Chintamani Prakara. So I'll try to go that meter. Paratya Parshada Sevana Sakya Dutya Virasanu Gunagana Satvana Parananam Nityeshu Pandushu Jagat Pranitam Cha Vishnu Bhaktim Karoti Nati Napatis Charanarabinde. Word-to-word synonyms. Paratya, acceptance of the post of a chariot driver. Parshada, acceptance of the presidency in the assembly of the Rajasuya sacrifice. Sevana, engaging the mind constantly in the service of the Lord. Sakya, to think of the Lord as a friend. Dautya, acceptance the post of a messenger. Virasana, accepting the post of a watchman with a drawn sword at night. Anughamana, following in the footsteps. Savana, offering prayers. Pranamam, offering obeisances. Snigdeshu, unto them who are malleable to the will of the Lord. Pandusu, unto the sons of Pandu. Jagat, the universal. Pranatim, one who is obeyed. Cha, and Vishnu, of Vishnu. Bhaktim, devotion. Karoti, does. Nirapati, the king. Charana Aravinde, unto the lotus feet. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Maharaj Parikshit heard that out of his causeless mercy, Lord Krishna, Vishnu, who is universally obeyed, rendered all kinds of service to the malleable sons of Pandu by accepting the posts ranging from chariot driver to president to messenger, friend, night watchman, etc. According to the will of the Pandavas, obeying them like a servant and offering obeisances like one younger in years. When he heard this, Maharaj Parikshit became overwhelmed with devotion to the lotus feet of the Lord. Purport. Lord Krishna is everything to the unalloyed devotees of like the Pandavas. The Lord was for them the supreme Lord, the spiritual master, the worshipable deity, the guide, the chariot driver, the friend, the servant, the messenger, and everything they could conceive of. And thus, the Lord also reciprocated the feelings of the Pandavas. Maharaj Parikshit was a pure devotee of the Lord, could appreciate the Lord's transcendental reciprocation of feelings of his devotees. And thus, he himself also was overwhelmed with the dealings of the Lord. Simply by appreciating the dealings of the Lord with his pure devotees, one can attain salvation. The Lord's dealings with his devotees appear to be ordinary human dealings, but one who knows them in truth becomes at once eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. The Pandavas were so malleable to the will of the Lord that they could sacrifice any amount of energy for the service of the Lord, and by such unalloyed determination, they could secure the Lord's mercy in any shape they desired. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nikanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschapta Desatharani Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna, welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam class to everyone on this wonderful Monday morning after a wonderful Sunday feast yesterday. So before I speak a few words on this topic, I want to confess, I had some, in my Bhagavatam classes at least, I like to share what I'm contemplating recently. So that's how I like to do. So I'll take this opportunity to share some contemplations I've been having in the recent past. But I will admit those are very vague in nature and very subtle in nature too. Vague in the sense like I have had so many experiences that I'm trying to put together and maybe convey in the form of a message. And very subtle because this is a very subtle topic, which is hard to communicate, because experiential is much easier than trying to communicate one's experience to some other person. So I'll do my best to do this. And until the last moment, I've been trying to see, where can I start, where can I end, and how can I put it together. So let us see what Krishna has today. I'll do my best. But definitely, I'm not at the Mahabhagavata level where whatever I'm communicating is the absolute truth, right? So it is more experiential in nature. So please take it with a grain of salt. Don't take it at face value. But I want to share, some realizations so that it becomes a little more ingrained within my heart. So that's my endeavor here. So I think something that I really picked up from today's purport, or before we even go to the purport, right, to give you the context of what is happening. So, in this chapter, we will see how we've seen how Maharaj Parikshit came across Kali. And then eventually when he came to know that Kali has conquered his kingdom, in one sense, he went around in a journey, right, in a conquest journey that Sri Krishna Prabhu explained. He went on this conquest journey from different kingdoms, many kingdoms that are under his reign, right? And then in the last 3 or 4 verses, what we are hearing is, as Maharaj Parikshit was going on this conquest, he heard the glories of his forefathers, meaning the Pandavas, his grandfathers. They heard, he heard from the various people of this kingdom the glories of the Pandavas, how great they were, right? And then he also heard about the glories of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. And everywhere he went, every kingdom he went, every king he met, or every person he met, he was hearing all the glories about the Pandavas and Krishna himself. And today, and in today's verse, it is culminating, in the relationship between the Pandavas and the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, how intimate their relationship was. And when he heard this, he became very overwhelmed, right? If you're seeing the screen, Vyasadeva or even Sutta Goswami, he's saying how when he heard that Krishna became, and Krishna is the Supreme Lord, right? He is Sarva Karana Karanam, and he is Ishvara Parama Krishna. He's above everything. But he became the servant, we see how he became a messenger, between the Pandavas and Duryodhana. He went as a messenger. A messenger is very often, if you see the history of various kingdoms, when a messenger goes from one king to pass the message to another king, 90 or even 100% of the time, the messenger is often insulted because he becomes the person who takes the message and say, for example, we see how Hanuman, was the messenger for Ram, and he conveyed the message to Ravana. And then we see how boldly the messenger delivers the message to the enemy, and then the enemy will ill-treat you because they want to convey a stronger message back to the original party. So they will ill-treat you to give that strong message. And we see how Hanuman was insulted, his tail was put on fire and whatnot, right? And we know that, every messenger gets treated that way. we know for sure that we'll be, that this person is going to be insulted, this person is going to be humiliated and whatnot. And even knowing that, for example, if we know that we'll be humiliated if we go and meet a relative that we don't like or we don't have a good experience with, or we'll be humiliated if we go to, we know that, we avoid those situations, right? We 100% avoid this. I don't want to meet this person at all, right? And even if now we see, however, Krishna, who's the Supreme Lord, we know that he's going to be humiliated, but he still decides to play this role because he feels, obligated, or he feels that love towards the Pandavas, right? And then we see how he becomes a chariot driver, right? Imagine the status of a driver. It's not a great status to be in, right? We also see in the Mahabharata where Karna was given a certain chariot driver, and Karna rejects. He says, "No, I don't want him as a driver." But Krishna, that is a very low position from a social status. But Krishna is willing to become the chariot driver for Arjuna. So we can see how Krishna comes down from his Ishvara Parama Krishna position down to be a normal human being, and even a lower status even within the human beings, right? But why? For the love of Krishna. And when Parikshit Maharaj heard this, he became overwhelmed with the love for Krishna and appreciation for his grandfathers, right? Now, I quickly want to jump into the purport, right? Here, this last section of the purport, Srila Prabhupada very nicely defines. He says, the Lord's dealings with his devotees appear to be ordinary human dealings. But one who knows them in truth becomes at once eligible to go back to Godhead. This is actually from a verse in Bhagavad Gita, right? He says, my appearance and disappearance, if one who knows that the transcendental nature of my activities, appearance and disappearance, will be immediately liberated. And the last part is even the more highlight, because I will be sharing a verse in a moment. The Pandavas were so malleable to the will of the Lord. So you can see, why did Krishna become so intimate to the Pandavas, right? They were so malleable to the will of the Lord. They could sacrifice any amount of energy for the service of the Lord. That is the reason. We saw how Arjuna, he didn't want to find the battle. He didn't want to kill his loving grandfather. He didn't want to kill Drona. But just because it was the will of the Lord, he decided to fight that battle. He lost his own family, right? We see how Abhimanyu was killed, how his 5 sons were killed. All this sacrifice just to please the Lord, to adhere to the will of the Lord. By such unalloyed devotion, they could secure the Lord's mercy, that unalloyed devotion, in any shape that they desire. So I know most of you know I'm part of the Sunday school, so we are actually doing the Acharya series, and I happened to come across this verse yesterday that we are doing at the Sunday school. Yesterday we decided to talk about the 12 Mahajans. And it comes in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where during the Ajamal pastime, where the Vishnu Dutas sent the Yamadutas away and said, you cannot claim Ajamal. And then the Yamadutas went and had a conversation with Yamaraj. And in that context, the 12 Mahajans are brought into picture in Srimad Bhagavatam. So Yamadharmaraj is talking about 12 great people, 12 Mahabhagavatas. And then he talks about this great Mahabhagavata, in essence Srimad Bhagavatam and the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. I thought I had the verse open. Give me 1 second. It is Srimad Bhagavatam 6.3.12, I think, or 16. No, 22. I'll find it. Give me 1 second. So chapter 3, Yamaraj instructs his messengers. This is 2 verses combined here. No, not this one. 20 and 21. Sorry, yeah. So this is where it is talking about the 12 Mahajans. I'll try to be quicker because I have another topic to cover that I really wanted to spend some time. Okay. What he's saying is Lord Brahma, Bhagavan Narada, Lord Shiva, the four Kumaras, Lord Kapila, Swayambhu Manu, Prahlad Maharaj, Janaka Maharaj, Grandfather Bhishma, Bali Maharaj, Sukadeva Goswami, and I meaning Dharmaraj, myself, know the real religious principles. And then he's saying, my dear servants, this transcendental religious principle, which is known as the Bhagavata Dharma, so important, Bhagavata Dharma, or surrender unto the Supreme Lord and love for Him. This is Bhagavata Dharma, surrender unto the Supreme Lord and love for Him. Now I want you to pay attention to this. Is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. It is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. And now the punchline. It is very confidential and difficult for ordinary human beings to understand. But if by chance one fortunately understands it, he is immediately liberated and thus he returns home back to Godhead. So again, I'll repeat, it is very confidential and difficult for ordinary human beings to understand. But if by chance one fortunately understands it, he is immediately liberated and thus he returns home back to Godhead. So, and then down in the purport, Srila Prabhupada very nicely describes the chapter of the most confidential knowledge in Srimad Bhagavatam, right? We also hear that aspect that Krishna conveyed this message, same message to Arjuna, He says, this is Guyam, very, very confidential in nature. So I wanted to spend a few minutes on this piece, right? It is very confidential and difficult for ordinary beings to understand. I think this aspect of being very confidential is no longer valid for us. I'll tell you why, right? Because by the mercy of the Acharyas, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, by the mercy of the devotees, this confidential knowledge, most of us who are in this Srimad Bhagavatam class have this available, right? We don't have to read all the scriptures. We don't have to, go on a conquest to find out what the purpose of life is or what is the most important aspect of life. By mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by the mercy of his representatives, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, this has become available for us. Now, the second piece is the part that relies on our shoulders now. What is it? It is difficult for ordinary human beings to understand. So one has to, my contemplation, going back earlier, or my realization is, why is it so hard for us to understand this confidential knowledge? Surprise, surprise. It is so difficult to understand because we think we understood. It's an oxymoron. It's an oxymoron because, I'll give the example of a teenager, right? Often when children become self-sufficient or they're becoming self-sufficient, they're ready to fly on their own, they feel that they know everything, right? So for example, if they just learn to drive a car, right? And then if a parent is sitting next to them as they're driving the car, you're like, no, there's a stop sign, there's a stop sign, stop, stop, stop. Red light is coming, stop, 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 right? You're constantly trying to give guidance. And the teenager often says, I'm fine, I know this, I got it, I understood this and whatnot, right? So most of you can experience, who have young children, experience this. They always say, I know it, I know it, I know it. Till the day a small accidents happen or so they did something wrong. Driving is just an example, but there are other things, right? Maybe when you told them to prepare for an exam, maybe preparing for an exam is a great example. You say, okay, don't waste time, prepare for exam, the paper may be tough. And they're like, yeah, I got it, I figured it out, I'm good, right? And then the day comes for the exam and they get totally confused. And then they realize, oh, I should have listened to my parent, or I should have listened to somebody who's guiding me, or I should have listened to my teacher or whatnot, right? So I felt this is the difficult part for us. Very often, when somebody is is in the process of understanding a pastime, is in the process of reading Srimad Bhagavatam, understand concept, we stop at the level where you say, yeah, I got it, I figured it out, I totally understand. And often, when somebody else is sharing a realization, right? For example, if somebody is giving a Srimad Bhagavatam class, and it is the same pastime, we've heard it many times, right? Our mind first goes to the default, yeah, I've heard this, I know this, and our mind wanders away. The key thing here, the key difference in Bhagavad Dharma is it is experiential in nature, right? Unfortunately, our material education is when you go and say, for example, when you take a multiple choice exam, right? And then the teacher gives you a question in multiple choice exam, and they say, okay, G is equal to A 9.8, B 10.9, C 11.2. There is only one right answer. And often we are in that mode in this material world. There is only one answer in Krishna consciousness, right? For example, if there's a controversial topic or a subject, that's very hard to understand, the way our mind has figured out, we say, okay, this is the only way, no other way. But Krishna consciousness is so dynamic, and it is dynamic because Krishna says, right, Jivera Swarupa Krishnera Nityadas, and each person has a very unique relationship with Krishna. So Krishna reciprocates in a very unique way with each and every person. So because of that experience with Krishna, and I'm going to touch this topic, you can please forgive me, I'll take another 15 minutes. Because this experience is very unique with this particular individual, the rasa or the bhava that this person experiences in terms with Krishna is very unique. When we are narrow-minded and our mind is so focused, I'll talk about this social identity, the concept called social identity that our mind has. But we become so narrow because of that. And when we become so narrow because of that, we lose the rasa tattva. What I mean by that, right? We see in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, how do people enjoy the aspect of Krishna consciousness? He says, Machita matkata pranaha bodhayanta paraspam kadayantasvam nityancha tushyanticha ramanticha. The way a devotee relishes Krishna consciousness is by relishing the conversation, by having a conversation with other devotees, bodhayanta parasparam, and tushyanticha ramanticha, and you're enjoying or relishing the conversation. Because each person has this unique experience of Krishna consciousness, when pure devotees come together, right, unlike somebody like me who's very narrow-minded, they are so open-minded, they are so eager to understand how Krishna played a role in their life or how Krishna has interacted with them in their life. And because if we are always attached to our own conception, our own experience, and not open to the experience of other person, or not open to the rasa or the experience that has the other person had, all we are left with this is drive our own experience of multiple choice questions. One answer, that is the only thing. But whereas when you read a book or a novel, it's not like one answer. I would say if you were asked to write an essay for an exam, when you look at the essays of all the different people in the classroom, the teacher really enjoys every person's essay because so much heart went into each essay and they're sharing their own experience. So when a teacher is correcting, an essay, it is a different experience versus a teacher correcting multiple choice questions. So the point I'm trying to bring is, for us to really experience Krishna, we should get away from this narrow-minded nature. Now, how does this narrow-minded nature come into play? This is, I'll spend a few minutes on this, right? I've been trying to contemplate on this narrow-minded nature through the study of mind. I've been trying to understand what the nature of mind is, right? So let us start from being an animal. Think that we're not a human, but we are an animal in the body of a human, right? So what happens is the senses, they pursue something outside, right? When they see food, they have a certain feeling that comes in the mind. When they see a tiger, a certain feeling comes in the mind. When they see, maybe if it's a pet of a, it's a domesticated pet, when they see the master, they get a certain feeling, right? So this experience outside, this information that's outside in this material world comes into our mind as three aspects: thinking, feeling, and willing. Willing, or differently saying, willing means also action. So what happens is all this information, when it gets entering into us, it comes into these three aspects. Now, if we are in the mode of an animal, we have instincts. So we immediately think in one way. For example, if you see, let's start with feeling, it's much easier. If you see a person that who you love, like your children, your spouse, your parents, you immediately, without even understanding what's happening around, you come to a conclusion of happy feeling. When you see a danger, you immediately come into a nervous feeling, like a flight or a fight kind of a mode. So that is animalistic nature. You get that feeling. And then you start thinking, you process, once you get this information, you got a feeling, you start thinking, okay, what I should do next, what, I should do that, I should do this, I should do this. Or for example, right, another example is if you're expecting, your child went to college, they're returning they're coming back from college after a long time. Immediately you think, okay, I have to cook this, I want to cook this, my son likes this, or my daughter likes this, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, right? Now you're going to the temple on a Sunday evening, your mind is thinking, I want to do this, I want to serve prasadam, I want to help with cooking, I want to, all these thinking is happening. At the same time, you're experiencing feeling. Now these thinking and feeling can remain as thinking and feeling, meaning, my son is coming, I want to cook this, I want to cook this, I want to cook this, but they may never manifest as an action. But one step further manifests into action, right? So if you're at the animal level, what happens is, as soon as this information comes, we come into a default state of mind where this thinking, feeling, and willing happens. And this happens at this state, this is a very subtle topic, like I said, so you have to pay close attention to understand the message I'm trying to convey. So based on our previous conditioning, and that's why here we are talking about, in this verse, when the Mahajans are brought up, the modes of material nature play a big role. We have a certain body, we have a certain mind, which is conditioned by the modes of material nature. And as soon as information comes in, we react to that based on the mode of material nature that we are in. So when it comes to the aspects of transcendental topics, when we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, or when you're listening to a Bhagavatam class, or when we are, hearing the realization of other person, right? If we are not careful, we are still at the animal level. The uniqueness of a human being is they can somehow try hard enough to peel that first level of animalistic nature, and then go in deeper and say, okay, my first thoughts, I can ignore them. That is not what it is. What I mean by that is, say, for example, it's much easier to understand this when you take a negative experience. For example, you don't like a person for whatever reason. You don't like one devotee. In the past, you had a bad experience with this devotee. Maybe that devotee chastised you or ridiculed you or something, right? Now you're going to a Sunday feast lecture, and this person is about to share, a topic in the Sunday feast. The first thought, because of our animalistic previous experience, because of the modes of material nature, the first thought that is going to come into us is, whatever this person is saying is not right. Even though you had only one experience, one bad experience, that is the first animalistic tendency that is going to come. And no matter how, maybe they're not even speaking from their own experience, they're quoting exactly Srila Prabhupada's lecture, still that message will have no relevance to us because of our conditioning. So it is important for us to be very, very mindful. This is where the point of mindfulness comes, and very thoughtful when we do our devotional service, to remove that initial first animalistic tendency. And only then we will be able to go deeper into the message of Krishna consciousness. And that's why in this particular verse, it is saying, uncontaminated. This Bhagavad Dharma is uncontaminated by the modes of our material nature. But it is difficult for us to understand because it's not because the Bhagavad Dharma is impure. It is difficult for us to understand. It is confidential because we are impure, and our first thoughts, our first instincts, our conditioning is what is preventing us from to understanding this Bhagavad Dharma. Until we peel this onion, we don't eat onions, but until we peel this, like for example, if it's an orange, until you, or even if it's a jackfruit, right? Until you peel the first hard outer skin, then you peel the little, I don't know what they call, like fiber things, you don't go to the fruit of it. So similarly, even though the pure Bhagavad Dharma is being given to us, if we do not peel these coverings of material nature on us, it's going to be impossible for us to understand the true nature of Krishna. And the first threat for us to understand is not only our conditioning, our acceptance that I already understood this. I already know this pastime. I already figured out, if there is a, why was Krishna favorable to the Pandavas? Yeah, I already know my own conception. I'm not willing to listen to others or what others' realizations are or whatnot. That's not, yes, by reading on our own, by our own effort, yes, we understand, we get some understanding, but there is a deeper message in Bhagavatam that only comes, which is very goyam, very confidential, unless we are willing to remove that conditioning on ourselves. So the biggest takeaway, and I think I started with the title of this topic saying that, am I really experiencing Krishna consciousness? And Krishna consciousness is a moment-to-moment thing. It's not like, I climbed a ladder, I'm already on the third floor. It's a moment-to-moment experience. So moment-to-moment, am I in my animalistic tendency? Am I in my conditioning? Or have I penetrated through the mind? And that's why, and I'll be honest, I don't know how, at least speaking about myself, 99.9999999% of experience in Krishna consciousness is on the platform of the mind. This is how I feel. This is how I think. And this is how I am going to act. This is how I'm going to cook for Krishna. This is how I am going to dress the deities. This is how I feel about things. And as long as we are on the platform of the mind, there is this word in Brahma Samhita. I would like to end with that. Pantastu koti satavatsara sampragamyo vayo radapi manaso munipingavana. As long as we are on the platform of mind, and mind can travel at the speed of not even speed of light. In the moment, you can be on any planet, not physically, in the mind. Vayo radapi manaso munipingavana. At the speed of air. Even if you go at the speed of air on the platform of mind, you will never be able to capture Krishna. That's what the Brahma Samhita verse says. So as we are experiencing Krishna consciousness, the question each one of us should ask is, am I experiencing Krishna on the bodily platform? Am I experiencing Krishna on the mind platform? Am I experiencing Krishna at the ego platform? Each one of us has given an identity for ourselves. I am a devotee of the Lord. I'm initiated. I'm second initiated. I'm a sannyasi. I'm a grahastha. I'm a vanaprastha. Am I experiencing Krishna on that platform? But there is something very higher than that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Naham Vipro, Naham Shudro, Naham Vaishyo, Gopi Padakamalayur, Dasa 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 Anudas. Now, in conclusion, how did these Mahabhagavatas, the Pandavas, how did the 12 Mahajans attain this? Their surrender to the Lord and their love to the Lord. This is from the Mahajans aspect. On the other one, again, here Srila Prabhupada is saying they were so malleable to the will of the Lord, they could sacrifice any amount of energy for the service of the Lord. That, I remember watching a movie several years ago. It's called, I believe, Fifth Element or Sixth Element or something. It's a very nice movie. Sorry to quote a movie where they're trying to find something. I forgot, the context of it, but they bring all the elements together: earth, water, fire, air, ether, everything together, but they're unable to achieve it. But finally, they bring the aspect of love, which is the element which is beyond all this material experience. And then finally, they achieve that goal. It kind of gave me some correlation to Krishna consciousness. There's another verse in Brahma Samhita. It says, if you put all your intellect, ego, everything together, you still cannot understand Krishna. The only way you can understand Krishna is Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochalena Santa Sadaiva Hitayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shyama Sundaram Achintabam Swarupam Govindam Adis Parusham Tamaham Bhajami. Premanjana Charita, ointment of love and service and association of devotees. Sorry, I went over time. I just wanted to share the contemplations that I've been having the last couple of weeks as I was trying to understand the nature of mind. In this aspect, I also wanted to touch one video that Balaram Prasad Prabhu sent. His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj was sharing something called a train realization, how he talks about how we miss the aspect of understanding Krishna at the platform of Brahman, at the platform of Paramatma and Bhagavan. That example also really helped me. Are we willing to stay and wait for the train to come close enough to see that train is not a light, train is not an iron metal thing. A train it has many things in it. There's people in it, there's the engine, there's the bogie, there's so much happening when a train comes. Bhakti is, we have to go beyond this feeling. We have to wait and wait and wait and wait to really experience Bhakti until Krishna reveals himself. That's another example that really, really helped me close this realization. I'm really grateful to Balaram Prasad Prabhu for sharing that video. It was very wonderful. I definitely would recommend for others to watch it if you get a chance. So I'll stop it here. Please forgive me for going over time. If there's any discussion or comments, we'll take a few minutes and then we can close.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for sharing your experiences and realizations. Actually, this was a must for all of us. Even I felt, at least for me, it's important, not all others. I don't want to say others. At least it's for me to understand what an experience is. You gave a very detailed way of what Krishna is, because even though you take Krishna consciousness, you may not realize. That's why the neophyte stage and then the Mahabhagavata or first class devotee stage, right? So initially we might experience, that's why we come in, but after that all others, weeds, etc., then we will forget Krishna and then we don't experience anymore. But look, I was thinking about the Rupa Goswami and all the 6 Goswamis how much they had experienced Krishna by mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, he is in Krishna. So that's why they were completely out of everything. I don't want money, I don't want this, I don't want that. I just want Krishna, nothing else. So it's a long way, but at least hearing this will give us a hope. I just want to share my experience. I'm sorry. When I went to Sadhu Sangha, people all went to Sadhu Sangha, the Kirtan, right? So, and then first time when I went, what is this Sadhu Sangha? Okay, Indradhan Maharaj and so many Kirtaniyas, etc. It's great. But I said after I went to the Sadhu Sangha, came back, and then I shared with several devotees here. You know what? Sadhu Sangha is not just the kirtan. You have to experience. It's my experience. That's all I said. You will experience when you sit there. I cannot explain it. You have to experience yourself. Okay. So that's my thought process, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for class. So, few points. Many things you mentioned. Primarily about the narrow-mindedness with which we approach, even to, the Bhagavatam speaker or the message of Bhagavatam, saying that I know it, right? Forget about it. We were reading the third canto there. Kapila Muni says, even the people who are worshipping me in the temple and not looking at others, right, is equally, there is a super soul within them, and they are completely kind of putting what do you call oblations into ashes, right? There is no use. I was thinking there, but yeah, even when it comes to in our stage, right, we are in this process of Krishna consciousness, fortunately, right? That the confidentiality doesn't apply that, as you said, most confidentiality, but still within this process also we try to be very narrow-minded, right? Sometimes, yeah, that stops us. Many times I did that. If I tell myself my mind is saying I know this, then I will not get a single piece of what the speaker is saying. So I can be in the class, nothing enters to my heart, right? So thank you so much.
Just to add on to that, we create preconceived notions of who, what Krishna consciousness is, what a devotee is, right? A simple example is if a devotee drives in a Benz car, right? The first thing that comes, in the conditioning is we say, okay, a devotee should be very detached. They should give up all their money and whatnot, right? But no, he could be a Mahabhagavat devotee, right? But because of our narrow-mindedness, we define, okay, this is what Krishna consciousness is. This is what a devotee looks like, and this is how a devotee should conduct. Usually, these conditions are meant to for ourselves. We have to tell ourselves, okay, this is how I'm going to be a devotee. I may decide to be very detached, but we try to keep our aspirations as a litmus test for other people. For example, if I have a feeling of detachment that I want to have, I say, okay, everybody else should be detached like this. Sorry, I'll stop here. I don't want to extend. Often that is the conditioning of ourselves help us, prevent us from understanding other devotees. Now, if we are unable to understand another devotee, how can we understand Krishna?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Right.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Guru and Gauranga. Prabhuji, I have no questions. I just have one comment.
Yes,
when you were saying, when you are apologizing for taking extra time, I don't know about others. At least I feel, oh my God, he should actually, whenever you speak, that's the feeling I get, that you should take more time. And I was so thankful that you want. more time. So thank you so much. It was a wonderful class. I wish you could speak longer, and I wish I could hear longer. Thank you, Prabhuji.
No, Prabhuji. I think this is good enough. Okay. We can
Radha Kunjabi Hari Prabhu is already experiencing Prabhuji.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Prabhu, I think we can end it here, but I definitely want to end it by saying I'm very grateful to everybody here. I think only within the Sangha like this, we are able to experience Krishna consciousness. So I'm very grateful to every one of you for, I think the only reason I'm able to stay in Krishna consciousness is because of your association, and experience Krishna is because of you. So very grateful to you. So we'll end it here by saying Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhaicha Patitanam Bhavani Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Haribol Mahal. Prabhu, you scared me like anything. I thought Susukam Kartumabhyam, but your lecture is scaring me in the morning. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu, it is easy. It is easy. It is difficult only because of us.